underestimated, yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated, we the ones.
It's the Underdogs back with you for another week in this July heat. I'm Jordan Brenner, joined as always by the best co-host around, Peter Keating. Peter, how are you?
I'm sweltering, but damn fine. I mean, how are you, Jordan?
You know, I'm a little bored. There's not much going on in sports right now. I'm not gonna lie, but so I decided who better to talk to find something interesting in the world of baseball than our old dear friend Molly Knight. Molly joins us along with her dog Canelo. Molly, of course, you can find her work on Substack at The Long Game. That you go to mollyknight.substack.com. If you're a Dodgers fan, you know her. If you're a baseball fan, you know her. If you ever read ESPN the magazine back in the day with us, you know her. Molly, welcome to the pod. It's been too long.
Thank you. And because we're talking underdogs, I've got this little underdog, little underbite, Tijuana street dog who loves baseball, and maybe if someone says something, he'll perk his ears up. You know, we talk about.
Where can we find his Substack?
He doesn't have one quite yet.
Yet.
But he's quite bullish on the Royals, and so you know, if they make some noise going forward, he might have to, you know, open
That kind of makes four of us, right, Jordan? I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've somehow become a Royals fan club on this podcast.
Let's start there because
Yeah.
because we made some preseason picks where we like the value of the Royals to win the division. We like them to make the playoffs. They're sitting at 52-45. All the reasons we like them are coming through. They're a great underdog story. The only thing we didn't factor in was that the Guardians were going to have, you know, the best record in baseball.
But let's give credit where credit's due. It's all you, Jordan. I mean, I thought if they leaped to about 75 wins, that would be a successful season. And holy smokes, look what's happening.
So, Molly, what do you like? And is this sustainable all the way to the playoffs?
Well, to start with, you're right. I mean, the Guardians, I think it was basically illegal to hit a home run with a runner on base ever since like Jim Thome left in Cleveland, you know? So I don't think any of us saw them being such a good offensive team. I mean, I love Stephen Kwan. I think he's like has been the most underrated player in baseball. But I'm shook all the time seeing how well they hit. That being said, we know they're the Guardians, and you know, they're a Cleveland franchise, and so we just don't. I don't feel comfortable picking them to win anything. To be quite honest with you, I mean, unless LeBron James is involved, I'm probably not going to be very bullish on a Cleveland team. The Royals spent money. Like people talk about the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and these teams that spend money. They spent $100 million on free agents. And they gave Bobby Witt Jr. an enormous contract. Like they should be rewarded for what they did in the offseason, and they have been. I mean, they saw that Seth Lugo should be paid like a starter, and it worked. They traded for Cole Reagans last year with the Rangers, and he's been amazing. Let's go. Let's go. Let's make some moves. They made a little move over the weekend. I think they got Hunter Harvey something. I don't know. They need to have a trading deadline. The Twins and the Guards didn't do anything last year at the deadline. They just stared at each other. I think this year might be more of the same. I really like this team.
They so need another batter too. And the one sort of offseason move that didn't work is Hunter Renfroe. But again, the question, it's so hard with teams in that division in those markets to justify giving up prospects at the deadline when it's still like, how close are you to a championship, really? But as we always talk about, and Molly shares the same opinion that Peter and I do, the playoffs are one big crapshoot now. So, guys, do you agree with me that if you're a team like the Royals and you have a chance to get in, go for it because your opportunities are so fleeting?
Yeah. Also, Taylor Swift happens to be dating the tight end that lives in your city. I'm not even kidding. If Kaufman is rocking in September and even in October, Travis Kelce will be there. Taylor Swift, it's like a 50% chance of being there. That's like eyeballs, money. I mean, I know it sounds lame or whatever, but like Kansas City kind of has the juice right now is what I'm saying. Like the vibes are good.
Yeah, people are wondering if they're going to be buyers. Molly's right. They've already proven they'll spend money to buy.
Yeah.
And look, under this new system, or the system that's a few years old, it really puts a premium on doing whatever it takes to win 85 to 90 games and get into the postseason tournament. That's what you're aiming for. Once you're there, anything can happen. And it's a lot easier for teams with a couple of visible holes to fill them than to gradually keep getting everybody better and better. They need to go out and get a power bat at first to third base or left field, and they will get in the tournament and they will do well. And I think Molly's right about something else, which is that Cleveland won't spend to do that. And Minnesota, and I actually think this is a good bet. Minnesota keeps thinking that if they get back their injured guys, they get 60 games out of Royce Lewis in the second half and 65 games out of my man Byron Buxton, that they'll be right there too. And what should they give up to do that when they already have assembled a really good starting rotation? So I think it's right there for the Royals to grab it. And it's an exciting time.
The problem is,
go ahead, Jordan.
There are so many buyers right now because of that same philosophy. So many teams can justify sticking around, just try to get in and get good fortune smiling on them in the playoffs.
Right. And only one carcass of the Blue Jays waiting to be picked at by all of these different teams, right?
There's not a lot available, which makes it super hard to execute trades, and also really does present the opposite philosophy for a team that's maybe hovering around 500, but isn't that good, with a chance to really quickly reload, in a buyer's market. So how do you navigate that as an underdog?
I'm kind of thinking about, look, the Royals' needs are different than like let's say the Dodgers' needs. If the Dodgers are making trades, they're going to try to get an ace. They're going to try to get Crochet or even Tark Skubal. They're not going to try to get, they're not in the same, they're not going to get they don't need a first base bat like the Royals do, right? I'm kind of wondering if the Royals trade for, like, the Cubs, like they're falling out of it. Like they stink. Like I know Bellinger just broke his middle finger, which is hilarious. Getting hit by a pitch, but like, how much would it cost to trade for a rental of a guy like that? That's different than trying to trade for a Crochet or a Skubal and giving up like your entire farm system, plus probably like a couple of decent major league caliber players. I don't know. I just, as you guys said, I just feel like we're in this era where we're going to have another team like the Diamondbacks, and why not the Royals?
If not the Royals, who else do you have your eye on who's maybe in that sort of jumble of...
You're not going to like this.
Yeah?
You're not going to like it.
The Red Sox?
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Molly.
The numbers are back for Boston this year. Yeah. They're somehow they're kind of a low payroll team under the radar that's overperforming, and it's if we can try to admit it as the Underdogs podcast, it's kind of a little bit impressive. It's retooled as a big time small market team almost, All
right, Molly, why do you like them? Lay it on us.
They're overperforming where they were. Devers is proving to be a top 10 bat. Duran has been incredible. He just won the I know it's just in one game or whatever, but he just won he went from being basically having such horrible mental health crises that it was maybe going to derail his career, to being the All-Star Game MVP. Connor Wong is like decent. On base percentage or whatever. They've got so many young guys and prospects who could come up. Like this is happening for me like a year or two early. I just think that they're better positioned than any of us thought they would be. I don't think they're anywhere near as good as the Orioles or the Yankees right now. They don't have to be if they can make the playoffs and whatever. If the Orioles don't get another ace, that's going to be a rough October for them again.
The Red Sox starting rotation was in a shambles for more than a couple of years, right? When you're talking about aggregate ERAs over 5, they just couldn't get it. But now, look, they've got between Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck, they've got a couple of guys performing at ace levels, and that's a big deal. It's almost like 60 or 80% of their starting rotation is flipped from being fairly terrible to really good. And again, that puts you right into that range of teams that can reasonably expect to win enough games to get into the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating trade deadline for them too. I don't think they can. I think they have to be buyers. They don't have, they're not gonna, go all in and loot their farm system for a crochet or a skoo ball or any of that. But like, I don't know, maybe they could trade one of their infielder. The Dodgers need infielder. I'm just thinking about, I love the major league trades for major league trades, like,
yes,
oh, we need hitting, you need pitching, like, let's do this, or we need an infielder, you need an outfielder, let's do that. And doesn't happen enough. It
exactly.
seems like the trades only
Yeah.
happen when like one team is rebuilding or trying to shed salary or whatever. And I'm kind of thinking that because there are fewer sellers in general, that we will see more trades like that.
Well, if you'd like Carlos Rodon, I'm happy to make a major trade.
No, but somebody like Keith Hamilton would look good as a Dodger, right? And do the Red Sox really even need him? They'd be selling high to a team that kind of needs a player like that.
For what it's worth, the odds are surprisingly short for the Red Sox and Royals to win the World Series. The Red Sox have the 11th shortest odds at plus 3,500. The Royals plus 4,500. So the market is got open eyes on these teams too, right?
It's just so betting on baseball just seems, I mean, and I'm not a sports bettor, but it just seems like the worst sport to bet on, because it's like, Aaron Judge could go, or Jose Altuve or Shohei Ohtani or Mookie Betts could go like 0 for 12 and and then the team could get freaking swept in the first round. Like, it's not, we've talked about this, but it's a large sample size game during the regular season, and then turns into a small sample size one in the playoffs. And
right. Well, that's why a lot of our bets are not postseason focused, but we like to play the long game, as some might call it.
Yeah.
And we have a couple for you a little later.
Yeah,
but not just teams, guys. There's some really cool individual races. Peter's been like salivating over text to talk about the AL MVP race.
I wonder, I had assumed it was going to be on the betting lines, a 2-man race between Judge and Soto, but it's not. Judge is way ahead. Judge is at minus 310 at DraftKings right now. And Gunnar Henderson and Juan Soto are second and third. I just wonder if you got these big power hitters splitting the votes. Stephen Kwan, who Molly mentioned, is having this remarkable season. Luis Arraez finished 8th in the MVP voting last year for a team that wasn't even above 500. Kwan is batting leadoff, was a starting outfielder in the All-Star game just this week.
Oh, come on.
And
Peter.
and his team is performing better. Like, his team is overperforming to a more of an extent than anyone in baseball. He's at plus 6,000. If Stephen Kwan can't win an MVP hitting 370, who is ever going to win a lead? What leadoff hitter is ever going to win an MVP?
Okay, first of all,
6,000. You don't see there's value there?
No, he's already down to plus 352. Ever since you started wanting to plan a show for us about the underdog chance of him hitting 400, he's just dropping further and further away. But Peter, he's 9th in the American League in WAR. His WAR is half of what Aaron Judge is, or almost. He's at 3.3. Judge is 6.4.
Jordan, if you want to lay, if you want to lay $100 to win, what would it be? 40 cents on Juan Soto's teammate winning the MVP. Be my guest.
No, but
I thought we were here with Canelo on the Underdogs podcast, looking at long shots. If you don't like Kwan, how about Jose Ramirez?
How about Bobby Witt Jr.? How about guys with higher WAR who are performing better in a lot of categories than Kwan? Molly, talk some sense into this.
I think Gunnar and Bobby Witt Jr. are going to regress rather severely in the second half. So that's why I didn't go for either of those guys. But I think Jose Ramirez is a great candidate.
Molly,
I mean, I'm the leader of the Stephen Kwan hive. If you guys don't know this about me, I've been obsessed with this dude. And unfortunately, he missed some time this year due to injury. Or else I think maybe his MVP candidacy would be stronger. But yeah, to me, it's like a 2-man race between Aaron Judge and Gunnar Henderson. It's so hard because they're both maybe going to finish with 10 WAR seasons, which is crazy.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, those are among the best seasons in history. I think at one point they were on track to finish with 11. I looked it up at one point, and both of them were like 11.8 on track, which would be tie them with Lou Gehrig for the 8th
right
of all time. I don't think they're going to fade. I actually think Ketel Marte is an interesting play, because I don't know, what's the NL saying? Is Shohei the one that's favored, or who's
for
favored?
the moment? Yeah.
You asked which leadoff hitter could win the MVP, and the answer is Shohei, because he's going to stay in the leadoff role even when Mookie comes back. But yeah,
well, look,
Juan's not going to win the MVP, so don't bet on that.
there you go. Well, you may not have to bet on MVP, but we've got a really good bet for you now in a little segment that we like to call Under of the Week, Molly. So Under the Week is brought to you by DraftKings. Dive into all the action with our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Underdogs only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. And the crown is going to be mine after I explain to you these unders have come up this week, okay? So you can go back on DraftKings. You can bet on win totals for teams. You would think you would do this at the halfway mark. It's the All-Star break. It's not halfway anymore. We've lost the narrative. But here's the thing. First, I looked at what pace teams are currently on for win totals this year. Then I compared that to what their unders were. But then I said, you know what? Forget about the pace. What pace should they be at? So I looked at their Pythagorean winning percentage, and I totaled that to a pace for wins. And then I looked at the biggest difference between a team's Pythagorean pace and the unders. And 3 teams are jumping off the screen as having been massively lucky, overperforming, and a perfect candidate for unders. Number 3 is the Cardinals. Their under is 82.5. Their Pythagorean pace is 74.3. Okay. Number 2, the Blue Jays. Under 77.5. Pythagorean 69.2. But the most crazy overachieving team compared to their under is the Tampa Bay Rays, an under of 80.5 wins. Their Pythagorean pace is only 69.2 wins. That's an 11 win difference. So, Peter, I'm really, really interested in those picks. And I think if that's not enough, PK, the team with the toughest remaining schedule in all of baseball, that's right, the Tampa Bay Rays.
Tampa Bay Rays, yeah.
So are you with me on my analysis? And do you have any thoughts on these teams and why we should bet their unders?
Just to sum that up in English for everybody, what you're saying is these 3 teams have been playing at the level of like 70 win teams based on the number of runs they've scored and given up, but their unders for the season on the betting lines don't even reflect that. And one reason why that is, Jordan, is because the unders do take some regression to the mean account or into account. Like the unders think the Yankees are going to do a little worse, the Dodgers are going to do a little worse, the worst teams will do a little better, but they don't take what you're calling the Pythagorean factors fully into account, how teams should be doing. And that's what creates value. And I think there's value in all 3 of those teams. I'm particularly intrigued by why is the Cardinals under as high as it is? I mean, there's at least some Tampa Bay juju that people believe in and some talent on that Toronto roster. But where's the Cardinals' underlying talent? I mean, they've been lucky in the first half, and I don't see where they have the talent to do better in the second half. I think all 3 of these teams are intriguing. You should mention, though, the team that's the extreme the other way, just because they're so fun and we've been on them for so long.
Forever. Yes. The team.
It is the Reds. We're also a Reds fan club here, along with the Royals.
Yeah. So, the Reds would be, if you're looking for an over, that's your pick. But are you, real quick before we go, are you selling on the Rays, Jays, and Cardinals compared to betting expectations?
You talking to me or Molly?
Molly. No one wants to hear.
Who cares? I mean, I just wanted to make sure so she could answer, because nobody cares what I want to bet.
I think that the reason the Cardinals appear to be so lucky is their offense was god awful. I mean, I saw that team out here the first week of the season, and they couldn't score a run. They've been better lately. Alec Burleson has emerged. They got Contreras back. They're better than they were in April and May. I still don't think they fixed the problem. Like the Arenado and Goldschmidt are not what they were, and that's a massive problem for them, because they're not a team that spends $300 million a year, and those are I think their 2 highest paid players. They're certainly the guys they expect to produce as much. So I would not pick them to do much down the stretch. I think the Rays might actually. If I'm the Rays, I kind of sell. I don't sell guys that I'm gonna build around forever, but I'm like, this is not the year. Let's try to sort this out. Blue Jays too, I mean, I'd sell. My friend who's a big Blue Jays fan says like, if you're the GM for the Angels, the Blue Jays and those teams, and like, do you really want to sell? Like, you're going to get fired if you sell. Like, it kind of goes against your own like self-interest, right? To just sell, and then they're going to bring in somebody else to do the rebuild. But like, then again, I don't know what Bo Bichette's going to get. Like, he's struggled for the last 12 months. So I really don't know.
Well, one thing we're not going to sell on is having you back on the podcast. Molly, thank you so much for joining us. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
Maybe when we preview a Dodgers Yankees World Series, we'll have you jump back on with us.
Oh boy, that would be MLB's dream. Or a Mets Yankees.
Or a Mets Dodgers NLCS. That's where we really come back and talk about.
All right. Well, we'll come back and talk about a little WNBA at the break right after this. With our remaining time, I want to talk with you about the WNBA at the break. All-Star game coming up over the weekend. Then they head to Paris for the Olympics. Peter, there's a lot of stories. It's been a great season. Obviously, a lot of it has been dominated by the rookies. So let's jump in right there. Not to talk per se about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese themselves, but their teams. The Fever, a little bit better than expected, especially after their slow start. They've won 6 out of 10. They're 11-14, currently sitting in 7th place in a playoff spot. Chicago Sky, half a game behind them at 10-14. A young nucleus coming off a dreadful season that's come together quickly. Kind of a cool thing for the bottom of the league, right? If you're going to have 7th and 8th playoff teams, make it the young teams who are exciting and have a big future.
If you want to plan it, if you could plan it some way, this is how you'd plan it, which is that these teams with these great young players aren't necessarily dominating right away, but they're good enough to be interesting. I think Chicago's a really interesting case. They're 10-14, but they've been outscored by fewer than 2 points a game, which is better than any of the teams in that band. And yes, we know because of all the publicity that Angel Reese is having a really good season, but her strengths and flaws, her flaws were overcounted, her strengths were underestimated, go along with this team. This team doesn't get to the line. They don't shoot a lot of free throws. They don't shoot hardly any threes, but they turn the ball, they protect the ball, they steal the ball a lot. And Jordan, this is amazing because of all of that, because of their intense offensive rebounding and their turnover skills. The Chicago Sky lead the league in field goals made and field goals attempted. I mean, that's crazy. They take so many shots because they're such amazing offensive rebounders. Reese and Camila Cardozo are working awesomely together. And that team is a lot of fun to watch. And I keep my eye on them to go a little bit higher than the 8 seed they're currently stand at.
Yeah, and Kennedy Carter's been fantastic.
Yes.
A really good addition to the young, the young players they drafted this year. It's too bad that Elizabeth Williams had knee surgery because that 3-player rotation inside is daunting. But and then look, for all the attention on Caitlin Clark, what she's doing, what she's not doing, the Fever are playing good basketball right now. So that's fun to watch too. It's a real contrast to though what we expect at the top of the league. We've got more look, the Liberty are dominating, but the Aces we thought would be out in front of everyone. They've struggled while Chelsea Gray was out there. They're 10-2 with her in the lineup, but that pack, especially 2 through 5, is a lot more packed than we expected. Look,
Jordan, this story of this season is that people should be paying attention to the number of players having all-time great seasons, and they're scattered among these top 5 teams. Yes, the Liberty, but also Seattle, where Izzy McBeggar and Nina Agumake are having outstanding seasons. Nafessa Collier, who's probably the defensive player of the year so far, and Kayla McBride on Minnesota. Connecticut has a couple of teams having great seasons. The Liberty's stocked with them. There are players that just are not named Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, about a dozen of them that are having exceptional seasons. And as a result, there's a 5-way battle for the top 4 playoff spots. It's fantastic.
Right. And Asia Wilson's having just an all-time season. I think it's
control.
Cool. I think it's cool that the Lynx, for instance, won the Commissioner's Cup.
Yeah.
They lead the league in defensive rating. There's a path to them for playoff success. There's a path. Obviously, we know the Aces are good, but there's a path for Seattle. There's a path for Connecticut.
Right.
And whoever's in that 4-5 matchup, that's going to be a doozy of a first round. But I am really looking forward to the playoffs. You get a couple of those young teams playing the Liberty, playing the Aces, and then you get these good veteran pseudo super teams like Seattle and Connecticut and Minnesota battling it out to reach the semifinals. It's going to be a great stretch run. I'm Jordan. That's Peter. Thanks again to Molly for joining us, and we'll see you next week.